everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my first instructional video. I was hoping to start earlier. However, unfortunately, it took an event like a great loss of one of the great jazz guitar players. Pat Martino died on Monday, November 1st. And just been thinking about his life and looking at some videos that he posted or was involved in master classes and some videos he did in the 90s, and just thinking about, wow, what would be a good tribute to Pat, and what would be a way for me to kind of give back, because so many years he gave to me as a musician, and I enjoyed his playing since I was a teenager. Early on, one of my teachers turned me on to Pat, and I listened to most of his 70s stuff, and then rediscovered him while I was in college. Friends were into him, and you know what? Didn't realize till much later that he suffered the whole brain tumor and the surgery and the relearning of the guitar. So there was so much that happened in this man's life, but yet he maintained such a high level of musicality, so expressive, so much fun to listen to. So, you know, the thing that really impressed me about Pat is that he decided early on to embrace the geometric or the graphic or the sort of physical aspect of the guitar. So if I take something like that diminished chord up the neck, that is symmetrical. And so Pat saw something in the guitar that was really inspiring to him, and helped him organize the instrument in such a way that made sense. And I want to talk about that. And today we're going to talk about the first part of two things that I would like to do. The first thing we're going to do is talk about the diminished chord and all its counterparts and the connected chord types that you can generate from this chord. The next video I hope to do is on augmented triads. So the diminished triad, the diminished chord. Right? We all know it. It's basically minor third stacked. And on the guitar, it's 4 frets apart. So if we just take this shape, this usual shape on the first 4 strings of the guitar, and move it up 4 frets, it repeats, right? We're all good with that. We all know that. So I am now going to explain and kind of expound upon a little bit the things that Pat was really promoting and talking about. So the one thing he stumbled upon was pianos have 2 distinctive opposites, white and black keys, right? And if you play the piano, you have to basically navigate between white and black. You have to figure out, how do I play all these different kinds of chords and all these different kinds of scales on the piano? And the black and white keys differentiate, and the patterns are different. It's not a symmetrical instrument. It's asymmetrical in the sense that you have to figure out every scale. Like if I were to play this E diminished chord on the piano and I moved it up to F diminished and F sharp diminished and G diminished and so on, it would maintain the same spacing, but the keys, the black and white keys, would shift. Where here, I can go up the fretboard, and so I can take advantage of the symmetric nature of the guitar in the sense that I can take a shape, any chord shape, and move it up the board and down the board, and it's not going to bother me. Now, the things he saw were that augmented triads and diminished chords repeated. So the diminished chord, we'll start here. It repeats up the neck 4 times, right? 4 times before it repeats again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and there we go. And then, since really most guitars have 6 strings, mine has 7. So we're going to ignore that 7th string for now, for the sake of our experimentation. So you have 4 up the board, and then we have 3 groups across the board, right? Then we go here, and then we can play, and then we can play it down here, right? The last version of our our diminished chord is down here, and this one's harder to play, right? So we have 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, or 6, 5, 4, 3. And so those are our 3 groups and 4 across the board. So that's the beginning of the diminished sort of phenomenon on the guitar. The other cool thing, and this would happen on the piano, by the way, except it wouldn't be as symmetrical, right? So if we take any one of these 4 notes in a diminished chord, we can transform the chord into a parallel, another type of chord. So the first one we're going to do that is obvious, you probably, if you play jazz or if you've improvised, and or even classical music, if you studied passing chords and passing diminished chords, you probably know that the diminished chord, or the diminished chord, especially generated from the whole half scale, is closely tied to the dominant, or the 7th chord, the dominant 7th chord, right? So if I take my good faithful here, my first triad, the E, excuse me, not a triad, but the full chord here, the 7th chord, the full diminished 7, or in its pure form, like on a piano, would be E, G, B flat, D flat, right? If I just took that and I lowered that E down to an E flat, now I have an E flat 7. Just by changing that E to E flat, I transform the diminished chord into a E flat 7. The cool thing about it is, because I have the diminished scale embedded in this position, I like to, the whole half is right there. So it's like an E flat 7 with a flat 9. When you play this, it's like playing a 7 flat 9. But we're not going to think of it that way. We're just going to think of a pure dominant 7th, right? Cool thing about it is that if I go and find the next one, so now I'm on the 5th fret of the diminished chord, and so the shape again is 2 3 2 3. On the first 4 strings, it's 2 3 2 3. So E, B flat, D flat, G. If I go up to G, where it repeats again, the next inversion, which is basically symmetrical, and find that E, which is going to be the 5th fret of the B string, and lower it, voila! I have my 7th chord. So now I have first version, and then I have, so second inversion of the diminished chord turns into second inversion of the E flat 7 chord. First inversion of the E flat 7 chord. Okay, pretty cool, right? So now we have the 3rd inversion of the diminished chord. If I lower that 9th fret to E flat, is my next inversion of my 7th chord. So I have first, second of the 7th chord, triad, diminished chords. So there you go. Last but not least is my trusty diminished chord, the last of the 4. Now the E's on the top. So I'm going to lower that E, and I have my last inversion of the 7th chord. So I have, and of course, and the cool thing about it, there's my diminished that's connected to it, and in here, and of course, right? So there's your E, your group of E flats, dominant chords tied to the E diminished. Next chord that I can generate is, if I take that B flat, move it down to an A, there's my next family of chords. I have A7. And if I go quickly, I'm sorry, one fret off, and then of course we repeat again. So quickly, E diminished or B flat diminished, lower that B flat to an A is my A, but now all I have to do is find in my next voicing, my B flat is at the top, so my next A7 voicing is right there. Move my diminished chord up, find my A, B flat, move it down. There's my next inversion of my 7th chord. And then finally, here we go. Sorry about that. And then there's my last inversion. And of course, we're back to, so there's A7. Next possible chord is D flat. If we take a D flat in the diminished chord here and lower it to C, now I have a C7. So wherever you lower these chord tones, the new note that you land on is the root of the 7th chord. And depending on where you are in the diminished chord, it will be a different inversion. So in this instance, D flat to C yields this inversion. It's the second. It's the second inversion of the actually first inversion, I meant to say, because here's the third. So if I go up to the second inversion of the diminished chord, and I lower that C to C, D flat to C. So here's my next inversion, second inversion. Now, the third inversion of the diminished chord has a D flat on the top, lower it, there you go. And there's my inversion. And this will be the 4th inversion, and then I may have misspoke here. Here's the last inversion. If I lower this D flat to C, here's my first, and it's the actual chord. So yeah, so this would be first inversion, and then second inversion, third inversion. There you go, and then the actual standard form with the bass at the bottom, and last but not least, we have the G at the top. If we lower that G, we have F sharp 7. Now the cool thing about this one is that the F sharp 7 it's at the top, the F sharp, so this is the last inversion of the 7th chord. So if I go to the next position and lower the G here, that yields the first the actual root of the chord type. It's not inverted. The bass note is at the bottom, and so is the last. And then here is the next version. Okay, so there's a diminished chord that's connected to it, right? There you go, there's the root form, and then there's the third inversion. So those are all the different dominant chords that are attached to these. And the cool thing about this is, again, these all have the whole half scale embedded in them. That's a cool scale, by the way. 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, and it repeats again. So if I do this all over an A, and if you want to add the 5th and 6th string, all it is, it's the same kind of pattern. It just slides over one. So it would go it would go 1 1 3 4 1 2 4. Slide over 1 3 4 1 2 4 1 3 4 1 2 4. That's all 6 strings. We're gonna know that in my 7th string, because for our purposes, mostly playing 6 strings, and as cool as 7 strings are, we'll just learn the form this way. So 1 3 4 1 2 4. Slide over 1 3 4 1 2 4 1 3 4 1 2 4, and of course repeats again. And that's the beauty of the diminished scale. Now, here we go. Half diminished transformation. So when we take these same shapes, and again, right, or even here, we can move these down again. So we have 4 3 2 1. Lower the first note, becomes a dominant. 5 4 3 2. Move the first one, becomes a C7. D flat becomes a C7, right? If I take the down here, same chord, just on the first 4 strings, 6 5 4 3, right? Get a G flat 7, right? F sharp 7, however you prefer it. So we understand lowering a note gives us our dominant. Now, raising a note turns the diminished chord into a half diminished. So most of you may know this. If I just take this half diminished chord, I raise it up. Now all of a sudden, it now is a E half diminished. An old diminished half diminished chord is basically a minor 7 flat 5. So it has a minor third, a minor flat 5, and then instead of going up another minor third, like a real diminished chord would, we raise it. So all these forms will tie into the half diminished as well. And again, for it to work, we'd have to start our half whole scale up here. That would be the scale that would be tied to it. Instead of whole half, it would be half whole. Again, it's like 2 sides of the same coin, or 2 different sides of the same coin. The diminished scale has 2 types of modes, either whole half or half whole. But without getting too sidetracked with that, so if I take this C sharp, since we're going to raise it, we'll call it a C sharp or D flat and make it a D. Now I have an E half diminished. And if I go up here, so again, I'm looking for that C sharp or D flat and raising it, and it ends up being on the 6th fret of the D string. So there's my next inversion of the half diminished, right? Again, the C sharp's up there, raise it. And the final inversion, E's on the top, right? So we're going to raise that C sharp to D. The thing to keep in mind with the half diminished chord, wherever you raise, that becomes the 7th. So you have to think of it, the root is going to be a step away. So C sharp to D, the root is E. That's our chord form. And we'll quickly go through the other ones. So if I take the first note here in my diminished chord and raise it to an F, so now I have a G F diminished, because F is a 7th of the G. If I take a step away, there's my F to G. So I'm raising E to F. So I'm going to go through all my forms. And now I'm going to look for my F, my E to F. There's my E. I'm going to raise it to the F. So there's my next inversion of my minor 7 flat 5 or half diminished. And this would happen to be the root form, because there you go. Here you have your root on the bottom, right? So So now I'm going to look for my E, raise it to F. So I have very interesting form, right? So there's my last inversion. And now if I go up and I find my E's on the top, raise it, and there's my next inversion. And so those are all the different inversions for that minor 7 flat 5, the G. So now we'll raise that B flat or a A sharp to B. So, and we have a D flat half diminished. So we're going to take all the B's. There we go. There's our next one. And raise this one. So there's our root form for the D flat half diminished, right? And last but not least, raise that G to A flat. So really now we have a B flat half diminished. We're going to go to the next form. There's our next inversion of the B flat half diminished. And now we're gonna find our G, which is here. And here's our root form of the B flat half diminished. And of course, we're gonna find our G, which is here, and raise it up. So those are all the possible forms. Now, of course, these all work across the board. If we take this down, like E, works here, right? Right? If I hear, so I can do it here too. Raise it. And of course, all these work. If I can drop the strings on this too. So the high E can drop to here, right? So now I can do the full diminished or the half diminished, or I can do any of the, I can do my 7th, or I can do all sorts of fun stuff, you know? Any of the dominant 7 chords, like here's my 7th chord, right? I lowered the high B flat to an A, so I can take, if I put that root on the bottom, there we go. So, and the other cool thing about it, if I want to just do same like 6 4 3 2, I can do 5 3 2 1 and do the same. Move it around, or and then raise. There's my minor 7 flat 5. That would be a D flat minor 7 flat 5, or D flat half fully diminished, or a C7. So we have a lot of options here, just from our friend the diminished chord. Now, of course, in the most simplest form on a piano, again, we could take a diminished arpeggio and change any of the notes, lower them, it would become the dominant of that note. That would become the root of the dominant. Raise any of the notes, and that becomes the 7th of the half diminished chord. So we have a really quick way of accessing all these family types, 2 other family types. And the other cool thing about this is, since we have a symmetrical scale that repeats every 4 frets, you have 3 stacks of 4 that yield 4 keys each. So you basically have all 12 keys right next to each other. You have E, G, B flat, D flat, F, A flat, B, D. Then you have F sharp, A, C, E flat. So you have all 12 keys right here. And again, the cool thing about it is that you can, you can have the half whole scale right here, and you can use it as a dominant substitute. If I make it an A7. So it really does come in handy. And then, of course, if you want to do half diminished, then I would have to move the scale up just one fret. But that's like playing the major, the seventh version of the scale. I like playing a dominant version off of the E instead of playing the full half diminished scale. So of the full whole half scale, which would yield you your E diminished. So if you wanted an E minor 7 flat 5, I probably would use a different mode. I'd probably use like an F major scale. But in the sake of finding the forms, it doesn't matter that it's not connected to the scale. So I hope this helped, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry I got a little heady and a little connected, but the cool thing about Pat Martino, the other thing that I appreciated about him talking about his approach to music and life, is that he talked about feeling and things being innate. So if he heard an A7, like he'd play, he had this theory of thinking of A7 as E minor. So he would do like minor-esque kind of melodies or things that he's experienced, and everything with him was an experience. So as much as this seems heady and connected, he practiced so much that it became part of him. And so that's what I think we need to do as guitarists, and embrace the repetitive or the shape-based, instrument that we have, and instead of shunning it and thinking of people, I've heard it too, like don't rely on the shapes, don't rely on the box patterns and the cage method and all this. And maybe that's true, but also maybe we can maximize and take advantage of all this. And now we can actually have a way of utilizing the symmetric nature of our instrument, because it's really a string and they're frets, and the guitar doesn't care really. We just move stuff up and down and it works. I mean, yeah, we have to be able to hear it. So anyway, I hope this was helpful to you. I plan to do a second video, and just wanted to honor Pat Martino. Sad we lost a great guitar player, a little young. 77 seems young to me, but then again, we could have lost him so long ago, so I'm glad we had so many years. He could have died in 1979, but he went on to produce so much great music. If you haven't listened, check him out. And if you have any comments, please feel free to leave a comment, or if you need me to explain a little bit more, if this was helpful, please comment, and of course subscribe and like the video. And more to come. I plan to build this channel and talk more about 7-string and slide playing, and I promise I owe you a part 2 to this Pat Martino tribute on the augmented triad, a little taste. That's coming next. All right, everyone. Thanks again for listening, and again, go listen to some Pat. He's a great guitar player.